So here we go with a little session of Bus Simulator 2018. So there was a little glance of the mission card there, or the mission menu. That shows you your mission objectives. Then you choose your bus. You get the starting screen and then you move into the garage itself. You can quick start the game just in front of your very first bus stop, but I chose to start from the garage or depot and then drive to my first bus stop. Now I guess one of the disappointing things about the garage or depot is it's not a fully fleshed out garage, which is a bit of a shame. I would have liked to have been able to do a few more things in the garage, maybe have an office where you can go in and plan schedules and timetables or change your drivers and the routes and things like that. But you can't, it's pretty bare, it's just an empty building more or less. So from leaving the garage you're straight into the town itself. Now one of the things that I kind of first found a little bit tricky for me is quite obviously the developers of this game are German, I believe, so they've chosen to model this fantasy city as a European city, so the driving is European or continental driving. So we're driving on the right, is that right? We drive on the left in Britain, and they drive on the right on the continent in the USA. So it's kind of like a mirror alternative universe here. But in actual fact, this doesn't matter so much to me because I don't drive. So I'm British, but I don't drive. So this means that this whole issue of whether you're driving on the left or driving on the right isn't actually technically an issue for me at all. So I got used to it very quickly, but I'm sure if you are a British driver and you take up this simulation, you may get a little bit flummoxed at first. Particularly when you come to multi-lane driving where there's lots of junctions and things like that, and your brain throws a wobbly about which lane you should actually pull over into. That did actually get me a little bit, how to pull across multiple lanes when at the same time my brain's trying to think about, well, I'm driving on the other side of the road now, how do I do this? Okay, so that's some of the technicalities just to get us started. I'm just filling in now because we're driving to our first destination, or our first bus stop from the depot, because I chose to start the game from the depot. You can start the game in a simplified manner or a quick start manner, which starts you just before your very first bus stop. But I didn't choose to do that because I thought I'd get a bit of driving practice. Now already I've gone wrong because you'll probably notice this has taken me a long time to get to my very first stop, and the reason that is because I've taken a wrong turning while I've been chatting to you, and the route planner has given me a new route to get back to my first bus stop. So it looks kind of cool, doesn't it? I mean, it is Unreal Engine 4. It's not cutting edge, I guess. It does what it needs to do, but I think it's very nice. I think the way they've actually done the city looks pretty cool. And let's face it, you spend most of your time in the cockpit of this bus, so to be honest, after a while I don't really notice some of the flat pack buildings that you get with Unreal 4, because you've got quite a nice dashboard in front of you, and to be honest, most of the time your eye is on the road or on the vehicle in front of you, and you're trying to concentrate on driving and not do stupid things like turn the wrong way down a one-way street or forget you're driving on the continent instead of in Britain. As I say, that won't be a problem to most people, being Europeans or perhaps you're American. But to the British, even though I don't drive, psychologically that's still at the back of my mind. Probably a good time to note that the vehicle models are okay. They're pretty generic, unbranded vehicles. The star of the show, of course, is the buses. There's some very nicely done bus models, although I'm not an expert in buses, of course. There's several makes and models with exteriors that you can customise. I guess one of the important things I should mention about this game, because it's kind of like an inner city based bus simulator, and that's the kind of architecture that's around you in the game. Now I have to confess that I haven't actually paid a horrendous amount of attention to the buildings that are going on around me, because I've been concentrating on just trying to stay on the road most of the time, as I'm such a newbie at this. But to be honest, it's quite nice. It's very German or very European. I suppose the main complaint is it's a little sterile, as cities are when they're modelled in games. There aren't a fantastic amount of pedestrians around. It doesn't look busy, but there again, you are trying to focus your attention on the road and not what's going on around on the pavements. Right, so we're still on our way to the first bus stop, and I'm taking it sort of easy because we're driving in the city and some of these roads can be a little bit tighter than out in the countryside, which I've done some of the countryside maps and they're a little bit more forgiving. The turns in the city can be a little bit sharp at times. These aren't too bad. Plus, I'm driving one of the shorter buses, or the shorter bus in the game, which is the Mercedes that you start out with. And it's one of those cut down inner city transit buses. But as the game progresses, you do move on to longer and longer buses. So it begins to be more and more of an issue. So things like this, where you're taking a corner, with this small Mercedes, eventually you do get a little bit cocky and you can really swing it round those corners. But later on, when you get the longer buses, you've got to take a little bit more care and slow down. So here's our first passenger pickup. So I've knelt the bus and opened the doors for them, and I'm just waiting to see if I've got any customers who are buying tickets. And typically, because I've now mentioned it, nobody's bought any tickets.
Where is it? I thought I had.
And this is one of the cool things about this. Obviously, this is one of those European things where perhaps, well, it's not European now, we have it in Britain now, where perhaps you pay by tickets using your smartphone. So a lot of these people have got on the bus without buying a ticket from me. So what you can do to sort of find fare dodgers is get out your seat, go back to the customers and ask them to see the ticket. Now in the old days, growing up in Britain, and I don't know if it was the same where you come from, but we had another guy, or lady, who used to actually check the tickets and take the fare, so the driver used to just concentrate on driving. And I'm just trying to concentrate on not killing any passengers here and park in an appropriate place. And I still haven't quite figured out what exactly an appropriate place is. Tickets. Senior one.
Wait, where did my... Thanks.
Okay, that went alright, just one. So you probably noticed that you can close the doors by pressing the buttons on the actual console. There's two ways of doing this. You can actually press buttons on the console in front of you, or you can map your buttons to your keyboard or gamepad, which I've got. I've yet to map a lot of my buttons because I'm still trying to figure out what's the most important thing to do, you know, what I need mapped and which buttons I'm going to assign them to. It's still early days, and the only thing I've really come across that I'd really like to map is my door functioning, the opening and closing of my doors, to make it easier when I come to stops. I'm sure I'll think of a ton of other things as I go along. I presume someone wants off here because there was nobody actually waiting. Now
Thanks for being so punctual.
Yeah, I think someone's getting off. I don't think... Is there, or isn't there, a bell? Do they ring a bell when they want to stop? I can't actually remember at this point. I presume there is. And of course all the time you've got this pre-recorded announcement of all your
Did you
stops.
catch the concert last night at the
Oh,
old sawmill?
and the other thing you've
Band
got going
seemed to
on
be just
is these
sleepwalking their way
exceptionally
through it.
mundane conversations
Horrible.
going on from the passengers behind you, who seem to be really obsessed by cats a lot of the time. But I guess it's fitting because drivers do have to listen to a lot of mundane chatter. Now, sorry if I get a little bit... my mind wanders a bit here, but I'm trying to concentrate sometimes because I'm trying to miss potholes as well, which is one of the little things you can get marked down on. Now, the game uses a scoring system where if you park correctly, park at the right place, obviously, you get points, and if you hit potholes or speed or take the wrong route or stop at the wrong stop, you get marked down. And of course the worst offences you can do is if you crash or kill a pedestrian, you really get marked down. as you can imagine. But I don't think you can get sacked, which is a bit strange. I suppose that'd end the game very, very abruptly if that happened. So you don't get sacked if you kill anyone or have a really bad crash. You just get marked down financially. This seems a little bit weird. Now here's a case in point. Let's try and not kill this pedestrian. Come on. Okay, now I'm taking things a little bit easy with my speed. In town, I believe the limit is 50. Another thing that's a bit confusing because this is kilometres, not miles an hour. So I thought 50 in town, but it's kilometres per hour. And out in the countryside, you get to travel 70. Although this game is kind of set in Germany, although it's a fictional city, I don't think you get to drive on autobahns, so you don't get to really put your boot down. So there's just two speed limits, 50 and 70, which is easy enough to remember. But
of course.
you do have to keep your eye on the
Where is it?
speed sign. Aha, got you.
I lost it.
Yeah, you lost it, my ass. I don't know what it is. This is just one of the great pleasures about this game, catching out customers who haven't paid. So they get this fine of 120 euros. Now we're just going into more of a countryside here, so we may get a 70 kilometers an hour limit in a minute. And also we've got to watch ourselves on these roundabouts, because these caught me out quite a few times to begin with. I did get sideswiped quite a few times when I started playing this game. I had a lot of accidents. To be absolutely honest with you, I had a lot of accidents when I first started playing this game. I was trying to do so many things, learn the controls, try and play with a keyboard and mouse, work with this whole thing that I'm driving on the other side of the road, blah blah blah, and I'm not a driver anyway. So there was quite a lot I was trying to do. Plus, and this is a case in point at this particular moment, I was trying to have a look at the pretty countryside or the snazzy buildings. So I was tending to look around a lot. I'm using my mouse, that's in my right hand, to look around and just avoid these potholes and get up to our next stop. I could be doing a little bit faster now, but to be honest, when you start the game, it's the speed that kills you, and this is where you start accruing a lot of bad scores, because you start doing a lot of stupid things, as in real life, when you speed. So I am taking it a little bit slow here. More potholes. these can really catch you out. Particularly, funnily enough, if you're speeding, because of the draw distance within Unreal Engine 4, things kind of tend to pop into draw distance, especially when you're going at quite a speed. So all of a sudden there'll be a pothole in front of you, which is a bit of a nightmare. Student quantity 1.
Thanks.
Right.
I need a ticket.
Sorry, a bit of concentration here, because you can also get marked down if you don't get the right ticket, or if you give too much change and things like that. And I'm trying my best here to do a perfect drive if I possibly can. Funnily enough, you can actually achieve a perfect drive on a route and still have hit a pothole here and there. As long as you don't do it too many times, then you really start accruing negative scores. I do love driving in the countryside here. This is the one thing about this game. I was looking at another game called Fernbus, which is a coach simulator, so that's intercity, driving between cities. And I was looking at this Bus Simulator 2018, which is a city bus simulator. But having said that, you do get to drive these countryside routes, which are really pleasant. But it would be nice if they kind of expanded it so you could do a little bit of intercity travel and expand the vehicles to coaches as well. Now these countryside stops are a real pain in the ass.
Thank you. Goodbye.
You've got to be a little bit more accurate with them, and you tend to bash into them a little bit more. And again, you can get fined for damaging your bus for doing that. And this, I suppose, brings up the issue, after just watching that truck swing back in front of me, of the AI. Because if you've not played this game and do start watching a few YouTube videos, this is one of the things that crops up quite a lot. They do tend to talk about the quality of the AI. Now, the people I've been watching, people like Quirty Afro or Squirrel, are experienced simulator gamers, so they're quite critical about the level of the AI. For me, someone that hasn't played these type of games before, all I'm seeing is the occasional, oh, that was a bit of a bad graphic glitch, that fence being in the air, I don't know if you saw that. The occasional erratic driving of the AI, to me, as someone that's been a passenger all my life, seems to be quite realistic, if you ask me, because of some of the stupid things I see real drivers do as a passenger. So I put it down to that. If I see some of the AI doing something stupid, cut you up, cut in front of you, or stop stupidly in a junction, or take an over amount of time at a junction, I've seen all this sort of thing happening with real drivers, so I'm a little less critical of the AI than probably some people are that play Sims all the time. I think it's quite realistic, because, to cut the long story short, the AI does stupid things, and funnily enough, real drivers do stupid things, so it's kind of realistic in its own way. So enough said about that, because I'll probably get flamed by a lot of drivers now if they watch this. But tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that real drivers don't do stupid things.
May I have a ticket?
Now, I haven't got to one of these really annoying passengers yet that gives you a €20 note for a €2 fare. You know, sometimes when you're playing this game, you can start to understand why real life bus drivers get a little bit grumpy trying to yeah, I didn't get a fare dodger. Like I say, it gives me a perverse sense of pleasure when I do that. No, you can see why real life bus drivers get a bit grumpy sometimes. Oh, this is cool, this is cool. We're coming up to a level crossing, so we'll get to see a the train here. Now this is one of the things which is a little bit of a shame. Isn't that cool? Again, this is obviously Germany, I think it is. Oh yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, this is one of the things I think it'd be cool. I guess it's like a wish list thing rather than anything to do with this actual game. Is wouldn't it be cool if this had a integrated transport system? You know, where you could swap over from the buses to trams or to underground or to even taxis as well. That would be cool, but that'd be quite a that'd be quite a size of game. That I don't think it'd be an easy thing to do, but this has been brilliant. I have to say, if I haven't said it before, I haven't, so I've been quite amiss. I've really enjoyed this game. You know, for saying I'm a long time and rather obsessive first-person shooter game player, I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed this. And I'll tell you why I enjoyed it, because it's so flaming relaxing. There's none of this kind of raging that you occasionally get when you play first-person shooters. No ranty swearing. Well, the occasional little bit of a rant. It's when the AI drivers are particularly dumb, doing normal dumb driver stuff. You know. Funnily enough, it's funny how you forget they're AI drivers sometimes, and you're calling them all the names under the sun because they've just cut you off. You know, but so occasionally, yeah, there is a little bit of raging, but only minor raging, and most of the rest of the time it's so calm and just relaxing, just driving along.
Of course.
You know, you can do.
Never have thought Hans would do
I don't
that.
know the longest drive I've done in this game, but you can do like 30-minute drives, you know, on some of the longer routes, and you can opt to do looped routes and reversed routes and all this sort of thing, you know, circulars, so you can get pretty long drives, and it's just nice tootling along in your little bus, you know. I perhaps won't say that when I get to one of the longer buses, like the bendy buses, which is the ultimate challenge, I guess, in this game. It may be a little bit more stressful trying to turn corners in a bendy bus, but most of the time I found this just lovely and relaxing. And there's actually a radio in the cab of your bus, so you can put some music on. Now, the reason I haven't done that is, as many other people on YouTube have pointed out, I don't want to get caught out by YouTube when it hears music in here that's because you know how red hot YouTube is about you playing music in your videos, so I've chosen not to play it. But sometimes you just put the radio on,
I hope I'll be able
and
to catch
you
some
just
sleep
bimble
while
along
I'm
in your little bus enjoying the scenery. And as I'm getting more experienced, I am sort of like turning my head a bit more often to look around at some of this city, and it's been nicely put together. You know, obviously we're in an industrial area at the moment, so it's not the prettiest of scenery, but some of the town stuff has been really nice, and the country stuff's really nice, and you know, you see some of the modelling of the buildings and things like this, and I've really enjoyed it.
I think I just saw a UFO.
Again, you will get a little bit bored of the conversation of the passengers as you're going along, but I guess that's kind of realistic as well. But because there's only so many scripted conversations that the game can have, you do get a little bit fed up with hearing exactly the same things over and over again. And as I say, they're unnaturally obsessed by cats. There you go, right, down to 50, because that over there on the left is a speed camera,
You're coming to the party.
and I have fallen
Sure
down
thing.
and been caught out by the speed camera. So all of a sudden you'll get this big flash in your your rear view mirror, and that was you getting caught and you get fined. So I'm having a nice little a nice little drive here, not too fast. Quite a lot of speed cameras actually on this route. Right, back up to 70 again, but I just got to watch them potholes, so I can really put the boot down. And this little Mercedes bus is quite nippy. It's a diesel, and that gives me the kind of cue to talk about the next thing, which is that you can become a little bus obsessed if you play this game. Because I've got a really horrendous admission to make here. I mean, I had no interest in buses really before I played this game. I mean, they're just boxes on wheels. And even within this game, yeah, they do give you all sorts of different models. There's Mercedes, they're all continental European ones. Mercedes, MAN, Iveco, and Cetra, I think is the other one. But when you look at them, there's a little bit of difference, but mostly they are boxes on wheels of different sizes. So I'm not a bus aficionado, really. I don't get excited by saying, ooh, that's you know, a Mercedes, whatever it's called. See, I've even forgotten what they're called now. But having said that, one of the things within the game is you'll drive diesel buses, or they have, is it CNG, natural gas bus? I'm surprised they don't have electric buses actually, but they've got these natural gas buses, and I wanted to know a bit about them, so God forgive me, I found myself on the corporate website of Iveco and looking at, look at the specs of this, what's it, Urban Way bus or whatever it is, that's CNG, and reading all about it, and then I caught myself doing it and thought, what the hell am I doing? I didn't really, I actually sat there and read it for quite a while. But I doubt if I'll be doing it that often. It's just I was interested to find out what CNG was, because I don't think we have them in Britain. We have electric buses, but not this natural gas bus. I don't think. Apparently they're pretty popular, or getting pretty popular in certain parts of the world. But cool thing, it's a green thing, you know, so thumbs up for that. So there you go, but that's the extent of how obsessed I have got with buses. So I'm not going to start wearing a little cap as I'm playing the game and things like that. Now that is kind of like blocked off that area of the map. I have heard someone in another video sort of saying that this might be an area that they'll expand in a DLC or something, and I have to check how far I am along here. Yeah, I'm coming back towards the city again. Oh, another train. How about that? Now this is a bit unusual actually. You don't see the trains that often, so this is quite cool. And if you're train obsessive, I'm afraid I've got bad news for you. There only seems to be one type of train, which is this little red thing, this diesel thing. So if you're a train spotter, you're out of luck.
Winter
Okay.
of Passion is such a great series.
And if you're thinking this at the
Do you
moment,
think Hans will
yes, I
ever
have.
come back?
And what I'm referring to is, undoubtedly some of you have thought, what I thought the first time was, I wonder what would happen if you parked on the rails and you just left it. Well, I haven't actually tried that yet. But I may very well do. Once I finish the career mode of this game, I may do some stupid things like that, just to see what the hell happens and record it for posterity. Okay, get back down these roundabouts. I guess this is something, if you're an American driver,
Nature's calling.
I think this is... do you have roundabouts in America? I'm sure I heard someone saying you don't have roundabouts. I'm sure I heard someone on a video that's an American player of this game saying how strange these whole roundabout things are that we have over in Europe. In Britain in particular, we are roundabout crazy. So in actual fact in this game there isn't as many roundabouts as we'd have in Britain. We seem to have roundabouts and mini roundabouts every 200 yards. Okay, let's try and not... Luckily there's a car there, a van there. Actually that's a good point. If you look at that van in front of me now, that's got a German number plate. So there's the clue about this, where this game's come from. Right, try and pull into this nicely without hitting that lamppost. Now there's a point right in front of me there. I don't know if you noticed. There is bicycles. Now, so obviously, like any big city, people ride bikes. Where are the cyclists and motorcyclists on the road? Nowhere. I'm guessing that is probably because they'd be quite hard to model from an AI point of view. But the other thing is, I'm getting a funny feeling you'd spend most of your time trying to deliberately knock them off their bikes. It'd become a mini game in itself. But no, seriously, I think what it is I can just imagine, oh god, pothole. This is a very British thing, potholes. So I'm glad to see we've got them in Germany as well. What was I saying? Bikes, yeah, I'm guessing they'd probably be a bit of an absolute nightmare to model in it from an AI point of view. Some of the pedestrians are bad enough. They get themselves a little bit lost sometimes and just kind of like stop.
Hey there.
So you couldn't be having that
Long
with
time
like
no
the
see.
bicycles. That would just
hi.
drive you crazy.
Yes, indeed.
Whoa.
The last time was,
Yeah, right. It's
I'm actually
time
quite impressed with
Yeah.
myself that I'm
Good to
doing
see
this
you.
and I'm talking to you guys at the same
have a good
time.
one.
And we haven't run into something so far. In fact, I think I'm doing quite good on this route. I think I'm going to get a pretty good score here. I haven't done anything amazingly stupid. This is the dangerous bit when you're pulling in, because you've got to judge this quite
Yesterday,
nicely.
we passed a purple cow.
I have
Yeah, I saw
run
that too.
into pedestrians, people waiting at the bus stop when I've pulled in or pulled out because I've pulled in too sharply, I've pulled out too sharply, and I've just caught a pedestrian.
Thank you, ma'am.
There you go. I haven't done that this time, so I think I'm looking at a good score here.
Thanks.
This is probably going to be the famous last words now. Let's see what I run into as I'm pulling out.
Oh no.
Ha! Got ya.
Lost, of course.
Little old lady, who would have thought? Actually, I'll tell you something that's just quite amusing and a bit on PC.
You want
Just
to see
as a
photo
scientific
of my
test,
cat?
just to for my own curiosity. You get disabled passengers. We haven't had them yet, which is a bit disappointing because I wanted to show you that, because you've got to put out a ramp and all sorts, and kneel the bus and put a ramp out for wheelchair passengers. We haven't had one,
Junk food.
which is a pity because I wanted to show you that.
I'll try
But
some street
I thought I'll try asking a wheelchair passenger if he had a ticket, and he didn't, and I caught him. So I suppose in that way that is sort of diversity in action, because why wouldn't disabled people try and dodge fares as well as abled people? So thumbs up to the game. In fact, funny enough, the developers have put in several funny little things like this. For example, the gay couples in this, you'll have in conversations, you'll have some of them. I've had men talking about their husbands. There's been lesbian couples in it, and things like this. So there's quite a level of diversity going on in this. So you can tell it's kind of like European. I'm probably showing off my age in saying that. I probably just said that totally wrong. So don't flame me about that. If I have said something offensive to someone, I didn't mean that. I actually was trying to, what's the word? Congratulate the game developers on being inclusive. That's what I was trying to say. Not very well. I apologise. What else can I say about the game? The actual game mechanics of a game in itself, I should talk about those. I've talked about the score a bit, but there's the career mode, which is what I'm doing, where you build up routes. The whole plot of the career thing is you're starting a transport system in a city that hasn't had one, so you're starting to build up routes and make them more popular and try and win the town council over to being on your side, making this transport system. So the more successful you are, the more the town council's on your side, and the more routes that they allow you to open and things like this, and you get bonuses for being successful in opening up these routes. And you open up different type of bus routes, like for example these CNG buses. They want you to use them, and then they'll want you to use bendy buses and things like this, and you get points for doing this. And you've got complete little submissions, and on the completion of a set of submissions you get a bonus and things like this. And your bus drivers, they go up in levels from apprentices to ace bus drivers. Oh, there you go, that's my trip ended. So I got caught up in the whole thing of talking about this, and my trip's actually done, and I've chosen to end the thing right away rather than driving back to the bus. Oh god, so close to a perfect 5 stars. That's what got me. Potholes. I was going to say something there, but I'll try not to swear. Bleeding potholes. Still, that was quite a profitable journey. I didn't get any fines, so there we go. That's nearly it. So yeah, there's this career mode you go through, and it's been very enjoyable. That's the career mode objectives there in front of you, so you get an idea. But otherwise, that's it really. I think I've chunted on for long enough. Sorry it's all been a bit waffly, but I found it quite hard to sort of like chat along and concentrate on not killing a load of pedestrians at the same time. Perhaps it would have been more entertaining if I had done that for you, but I just have to finish this by saying, fantastic game. I'm going to be working on the career mode for a lot longer, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it as I've enjoyed playing it really. That's Bus Simulator 2018.